Start.
Good afternoon. One and all present here. I am Ilaminil, pursuing third year civil engineering at Chennai Institute of Technology. Welcome you all for this faculty development program on sustainable smart cities. Here we are in afternoon session. So now I would like to welcome Dr. V. Satish Kumar, who is working as assistant professor in the Department of Electronic Engineering at MIT campus Anna University since 2014. He has about 7.5 years of teaching experience in Anna University and Anna University affiliated colleges. He received his Doctor of Philosophy from Department of Engineering Design, IIT Madras, in 2014. He is also a deputy coordinator and one of the principal invigilators in UCC section project for university with potential for excellence in biomedical and engineering and instrumentation. He has been for through many projects and he is also a member of IEE, Indian Laser Association, SPIE, and Indian Unit of Patent Recognition and Artificial Intelligence. Now, I request the chief guest to deliver his presentation on IoT-enabled technologies. Now, the session is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for introducing me. So,
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to deliver a lecture in this FDP program. Okay, so I will just switch on the screen. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about smart cities. So how IoT is going to be used for developing or making a city into a smart city. So first, let us start with the basic definition of an IoT. So, dynamic global network infrastructure with self-configuring capabilities based on standard and interoperable communication protocols, and physical and virtual identities, physical attributes, and virtual personalities, and use intelligent interfaces, and are seamlessly integrated into the information network, often communicate data associated with users and their environment. So the definition seems to be very big and a little bit complex also. So we will try to break this definition into smaller parts so that we can understand a little bit better about an IoT. So first, here I have highlighted few important keywords in this definition in red color. So first, it states that it's a dynamic global network infrastructure. So obviously, we are going to have IoT devices which will be implanted in different locations. So this IoT devices is going to send the data to a network. And the network is nothing but, it's not a local network, it is going to be a global network. It's a worldwide network and it is going to be dynamically changing network. And also we need to have a system with self-reconfiguring capabilities. Because as I buy new items, if it comes with a IoT enablement, then I should be able to configure my network then and there. So we should have a network with self-configuring capabilities. And another important thing is your intraoperable communication protocols. Our IoT devices, it comes in different forms and it comes with different communication protocols. For example, few devices might work with Ethernet communication, few might be working with coaxial cables, few will be using wireless communication systems like Zigbee network or some other wireless communication protocols. So we should have a network which supports this interoperable communication protocols. And again, another important thing is here we are going to consider the devices or the things are going to have its identities. As we all have our identity, like our name is one of the identity. Same way for a device, we are going to put some identities. So we identify through their number or through their name or something like that. We try to put identities for everything. And once the devices are going to get connected, it will transfer the information into a network. So this is the overall definition of an IoT. So the important takeaway from this definition of an IoT is we should have a dynamic global network infrastructure with self-configuring capabilities. So our network should be dynamic enough, dynamic so that I can add new nodes, I can remove some nodes dynamically, and also it should have some self-configuring capabilities. And my network should work with interoperable communication protocols. It should support, because each communication system will have a different type of data transfer properties. Different packets will be sent. So our network should be able to understand all these formats, and it should be able to work together. Then only we can able to make a Internet of Things system. And a very important thing is IoT devices needs to have some identities. So whatever the information it transfers, it will go or it will get recognized with the help of these identities. And the information it generates, it goes into this information network. So there are different applications of an IoT. For example, in home applications like smart lighting, smart appliance control, intrusion detection, and smoke and gas detection. So these are some of the applications which we can do using IoT in a home based. And in cities, we can have something like a smart parking system. Based upon the availability of a slot, we can able to decide and we can move to that location and we can park our vehicle. Smart roads, structural health monitoring, and also emergency responses can be obtained. So today I will be talking much about these cities, because our FDP topic is much related to the city, talking much about the cities. And other applications like in environment, we can do weather monitoring, air pollution monitoring, noise pollution monitoring, and forest fire detection. In energies, we can do some smart metering systems, smart grids, renewable energy systems. And in retail, we can have some inventory management and smart payments, digital payments, smart vending machines. In logistics, we can do some tracking, route generation and scheduling, shipment monitoring, remote vehicle diagnostics. In agriculture, smart irrigation system, greenhouse control. And in industries, like mostly machine will generate the data and it will be able to diagnose the machines. Indoor air quality monitoring system. And in health and lifestyle, we can have a lot of wearable devices, biomedical instrumentation will come into play. So today I will be talking much about this cities, smart cities. So in order to understand Internet of Things, we need to learn or study about different layers of an IoT. So first important thing is we should have a device. It should be able to sense some parameters. And these parameters should be communicated to a network. And from a network, it has to go to a cloud environment. And from a cloud environment, we can use some application to access the data and we can do some processing. We can visualize the data. We can do a lot of things. So first we will start with the IoT device. The device which is going to do the actual acquisition or control part. What will be there in that IoT device? So here I show a block diagram of an IoT device. So here the main important thing is your processor. So the processor is the heart of the IoT device. It is going to get the data and it is going to send the data to a network. So the data can be obtained from a sensors. So the sensors comes in different functionalities like analog sensors, digital sensors, and the data from a sensor can be transferred in different methods like a serial communication using UART protocol. UART is Universal Asynchronous Receiver Transmitter Protocol. It's a serial communication protocol. SPI protocol, serial peripheral interface. I2C is a inter-integrated circuits. And CAN is a control area network mostly used for automobiles. So different parameters from an automobile car, it can be communicated using this CAN protocol. So these are some of the IO interfaces. From this IO interfaces, it goes to the CPU. Then the CPU, it can do two things. One is, it can just forward the packets or it can just forward the data to a network. Or else, some intelligence can be incorporated into the processor. So the decision making can be handled with the help of a processor also. So there are two options in which the CPU can function. One is just getting the data from sensors, sending it into a network. Or else, what the processor can do is, it can do some small intelligence. Based upon the input data, it can do some control operations. That can be possible. If I work with something like an audio device, or if I work with a surveillance system, then I need to have a HDMI interface, 3.5 mm audio interface, RCA video interface. So this is for surveillance application and for audio applications. Some small amount of memory is also required. If I want to do some computing in my processor, then a memory is required. So we can make use of SD card, MMC card, secured digital input-output cards, and we can also have different memory interfaces like RAM memories, ROM memories we can have. So if we work with something like a video processing or audio processing, which involves a huge amount of data, then the processor it will take much more time. So in that case, we can also have a GPU. So the GPU is graphical processing unit, which can do the processing at a faster rate. So either I can have a processor in some special applications like audio processing or video applications, we can go with a GPU processor also. And it's optional. And once the data is available, then this data has to be sent to the network. So it can be done using a USB, or it can be using a Ethernet. Even I can use a wireless connectivity. So this is the basic block diagram of an IoT device, where an IoT device is going to sense a parameter. It can do some processing if it wants, or it can just divert the data to a network. So this is the basic block diagram of an IoT device. So these are some of the IoT devices available. For example, in home appliances, we can have some small monitoring devices which are available in your washing machine or fridge, smartphones, computers. In wearable electronics, we have a lot of IoT devices. In automobiles, different sensors, numerous sensors are available in automobile. So those sensor data will be acquired with the help of this IoT device. Energy systems, retail payments, in printers, industrial machines, healthcare centers, and surveillance cameras. So these are some of the types of IoT devices. Now we have seen about a node which is going to acquire a data and send it to a network. Once the data goes to a network, what happens? So that is what we will try to see it here using IoT protocols. So an IoT device, it acquires a data, sends the data to a network. So it comes through this bottom layer, link layer. So now the IoT device is sending the data. Let us assume that the IoT device is sending a data through Ethernet. It will be in that packet format. Same way, if I have a WiMAX facility, then the data will come through this WiMAX. If I have a cellular communication network, it will come through this 2G, 3G, or LTE. If I have Wi-Fi, it will come through this Wi-Fi module. Same way for low rate WPAN networks. So now the data comes to this link layer. From this link layer, it goes into a network layer. So here again, in this each layer, the data packet will be in different forms. So this packet format, for example, Ethernet will be a different type of packet, WiMAX will be a different type of packet, cellular communication will be a different type of packet. So these packets will be converted into a universal internet packets, IP datagrams. So that is what happens in your network layer. So here also I have different applications like version 4, version 6, and 6LoWPAN. Once the data is available as an IP datagram, then it is sent to a destination through this transport layer. So transport layer is going to ensure whether how we are going to send the data from one node to another node. So from this transport layer, it is there in the cloud environment or somewhere. So if I have an application, using that application, I can able to access this data in a network. So that is what we use in our application layer. Here again, we have a lot of applications available. So these are the different layers in the network. So an IoT device is going to get the data, send it to this link layer. So the link layer, here the data comes in different formats. So this different format data is getting converted into an IP datagram in a network layer. Once it gets converted into a IP datagram, this IP datagram will be routed towards the destination using your transport layer. Then using an application layer, like something like our mobile application, we can access the data through that application. So here HTTP is something like a website. So like that, we have a lot of applications available through which we can able to access the data in a network. So we will see one by one what it is. So first, link layer. So this bottom layer. So we are getting the data from IoT device. It comes to this link layer. So here it will be available as it is. As the data comes from my IoT device, it will have some format, packet format, like start bit, some synchronization bits, then data or source address, destination address, data, some format, packet format will be there depending upon what type of communication we are trying to use. So this packet gets different based upon the protocol which we are going to use. For example, in Ethernet, we have again lot of standards. If I have something like 10 base 5 Ethernet, then we will be using a coaxial cable to transfer the data from our IoT device to a network. If I use 10 base T, then I will be using copper twisted pair cable. It's a twisted pair cable to send the data. If I use 10 base F, then we will be using optical fiber to send the data. So just depending upon the standards, the mode of communication, the channel of communication gets changed, through which the data packet will be sent to the networks. So here it can support up to 10 MB per second to 40 GB per second. Same way, if I have a Wi-Fi network, it's a wireless local area network. So here also, depending upon the standards, the frequency of operation changes. For example, 802.11a operates with 5 GHz band. 11B, 11G operate in 2.4 GHz. It's a frequency through which frequency the data will be transmitted wirelessly. Same way for 802.11n, it can be 2.4 or 5 GHz. It is configurable. So depending upon that, the data will be transferred to the network. So here it supports the data rate up to 1 MB per second to 6.75 GB per second. Same way, I have another communication protocol called as WiMAX, which is a wireless broadband standards. Here it supports from 1.5 megabits per second to 1 GB per second. And another interesting network is there, which is a low rate wireless personal area networks. So which is something like if I have more number of nodes and this node wants to collect the data, and after collecting all the data, I want to send it to a network. In that case, what I can do is I can form a low data rate wireless network. So through which the data will be coordinated and it can be sent to a network. So here the example is a ZigBee protocol. So it provides a data transfer rate of 40 KB per second to 250 KB per second. Same way, mobile communications also can be used for sending the data to a network. So 2G, GSM and CDMA, 3G, UMTS and CDMA 2000, 4G, LTE systems. So here it supports a data rate of about 9.6 KB per second, 100 MB per second. So the important takeaway from seeing these layers are, it is not only an IoT device is going to have a single type of communication. I can have multiple different communication protocols. So our network should be interoperable. It should be able to understand all these networks. So each network is having a different mode of operation, mode of packet transfer, and also different way of accessing the data. So that completes our link layer. So now the data has come from my IoT device. So this data has to be sent to the network layer. When I send the data to a network layer, it should be in a universal format. It should not be in a different formats as it is in a link layer. So we try to make the data in a universal format in the network layer. So here we convert our data into a IP datagram. We say it as IP packets. So here these IP packets can be of, initially it started with IP version 4 and now it is extended to IP version 6. You'll see what is the difference between IP version 4 and IP version 6. So IP version 4 is used to identify the device with the help of a 32-bit addressing scheme. So if I have 32-bit address, then I can have 2 power 32 different addresses. So each address can be allocated for an IoT device. As the number of devices increased to a great extent, this 32-bit address is not sufficient for us. So thereby we go to IP version 6. In IP version 6, we use a 128-bit address, which means I can generate up to 2 power 128 addresses. So I can access 2 power 128 devices in a network. So now we are using this IP version 6 protocol. And in 6LoWPAN, it is used for a very low power personal area networks. It is used for something like, if my IoT device comes with a IP ID. Usually the IoT device will not come with an IP ID. If it comes with an IP address, I can directly use that IP address to link to a network. Without any, I did not have this link layer at all. For example, here, if my IoT device comes with an IP address, then I need not have a link layer. I can directly go to a network layer. I can directly send the data to this network layer, because there I have an IP address and the data coming from the IoT device will be as a IP datagram. So I can directly connect it to a network layer. Thereby I can eliminate this link layer. So that is the interesting thing in your 6LoWPAN devices. So this devices, it comes with an IP address, so it can directly transfer the data to a network layer. Then comes your transport layer. So the role of network layer is, it gets the data from link layer, form it as a IP datagram. And this IP datagram, it has to be sent to the destination. So it requires another layer, which is called, so it ensures end-to-end message transfer capability. How the data is going to get transferred from one source to another destination, or how a data is going to be transmitted from one source to multiple destinations. So that will be taken care by your transport layer. So here I have two important protocols. One is TCP protocol and UDP protocol. So TCP is transmission control protocol. UDP is user defined protocol. Sorry. So the basic difference is, in TCP protocol, it involves handshaking mode. Handshaking in the sense, if I send the data to some other destination, the destination device, as soon as it receives the data, it will give a acknowledgement signal. So once I receive that acknowledgement signal, then only I will send the next data packet. So this is called as a handshaking mode. So this is done using the transmission control protocol. In user-defined protocol, there is no handshaking involved. So if I want to communicate a real-time information, in that case, what I can do is, I can divide the information into small packets. And this, each packet, it can be routed using different paths so that it reaches the destination. So here there is no handshaking involved. If some data packet is lost, then that will not affect our entire performance of the system. As I have converted my information into small packets, if one or two packet is missed due to some network congestion or something like that, then it will not affect our performance drastically. So that is the role of having a transport layer. Next comes your application layer. So there is the final layer through which I can access the data which is available in my network or a cloud environment. So for example, in our mobile, we use a lot of applications. So Gmail application, Facebook application, lot of applications are there. So through this application, if I enter something, it communicates with the server, and from the server, it tries to get the data back. So that is the role of having an application layer. So an application interface with the lower layer protocols to send the data over the network. So usually this data will be an encrypted form. It will be a highly secured form. So we might be using this HTTP protocol, which is called Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Normally we use in our website, www.google.com, we try to put. So it represents a HTTP format. Here it comes as a request response model. We will see what are these request response models. I will try to take it separately. So what are the different models available or communication methods available? So it supports request response model between the client and the server. Then I have another protocol called as COAP, which is called as constrained application protocol, which is mainly used for machine-to-machine applications. For example, in an industry, if I have something like 100 robotic machines, and this 100 robotic machines has to work together to make a car, then I need to have a machine-to-machine interface application should be there. So for that, we make use of this constrained application protocol. It is developed only for a particular application. I would not be able to use it as a general purpose. It is only applicable for a constrained application, and it is mostly used for machine-to-machine applications, where I have a constrained environment, constrained devices, and constrained network. It also works with request response model. Then I have another type of application protocol, which is called as a WebSocket protocol. So WebSocket is a full duplex communication. Full duplex in the sense, I have a separate channel for sending the data, separate channel for receiving the data. So I can, at a time, I can send the data and also I can receive a data, which is called as a full duplex communication. So simultaneously, I can do transmission as well as reception. Thereby, the speed of operation gets increased. That is the importance of having your WebSocket application. Then I have MQTT, which is Message Queue Telemetry Transport, which is a lightweight messaging protocol. Mostly for our mobile applications, we try to use it. And it works in publish subscribe model. Just remember this name, so you will see what it is a little bit later. Publish subscribe model. And it is also used for constrained environments. Then I have XMPP, which is an extensible messaging and presence protocol. It is used for some real-time communication and streaming XML data. If I want to have some real-time data, which needs to be streamed at a faster rate, then we use this XMPP application protocol. Then I have DDS, Data Distribution Service, which is again used for device-to-device communication and machine-to-machine communication application. Here also it supports publish subscribe model. And final one is AMQP, Advanced Message Queuing Protocol. Is an open application layer protocol for business messaging, like point-to-point, like our SMS. I can send from one person to another person, or I can send from one person to multiple person, like a publisher or subscriber. I can able to do it. So just no need to worry about the technical details about this protocol. Just have an understanding that what each thing is going to do, because it is required when we go for a practical implementation of IoT system in a smart cities. We need to understand all these things: how a data is getting acquired, how it is sent to a network, and how it is getting converted into a cloud storage, and from cloud storage how we can able to access the data. So everything, it comes as a Internet of Things. So here I represent the overall functional blocks. So it gives the complete IoT device. So here I have a device. So this is a IoT device which is going to acquire all the data, then use some communication protocols to send the data to a network. And while sending and also while retrieving the data from the network, I should have a security, privacy should be there, and also I should manage the data, where it is stored, how it is stored, how to retrieve the data. So a lot of things we need to take into account while doing management. Then services, something like how network is formed, how many networks are there, diagnostics are there, and what type of applications is going to access this data. So this gives the complete functional block of IoT. So the same thing is described here. So now we move on to another important thing called as communication models. Now I have something like a data is obtained from an IoT device. How this data will be stored in a network, or when I want a data from a network, what I have to do to get the data from a network. So here we have different communication models. So first model is a request response model. So here, just look at this block diagram. Okay. So here I have a client. For example, right now I am the client. I want some data from a server. Then what I do? I send a request to the server. Then the server receives the request from the client, processes the request, looks up, fetches the resources. It goes and fetches the resources and sends the response back to the client. Okay. It is similar to that of our normal browser. In our browser, what we do? We type google.com. When I type google.com, I am requesting. Okay, I want to go to google.com. So then that client, as soon as the request is there, it sends a request to the server. Server, what it does? It goes and searches for the Google server. From Google server, it gets the response and sends it back to the client. So client is nothing but our web browser. So this is called as a request response model. When I give some request, the system responds to my request. So this is called as request response model. Next one is called as publish subscribe model. So publish subscribe model is something like we can relate it to a normal newspaper subscription. So what we do, if I prefer Hindu newspaper, I subscribe to the Hindu newspaper. So as soon as I subscribe, I will get that Hindu newspaper to my home. Same way, here I have three important components. One is called as a publisher, broker, and consumer. So the publisher, we can think of something like a Hindu printing press. They are the publishers. They are going to publish that newspaper. And after they publish, they give that to a broker. So this broker, they might be a broker for different newspapers like Hindu, Deccan Chronicle or something else. They can be a broker. And the consumer will be subscribed to a particular application, and that application alone will be diverted to a consumer. So the important thing is, once a publisher publishes a topic, it goes into a broker. So the broker will have all the subscribers list. Based upon the subscribers list and their wish list, the broker will send that information to that consumer. So here the publisher and consumer will not have a direct interaction with each other. Publisher and broker will interact. Same way, broker and consumer will interact, but the consumer is not going to have any direct relation with the publisher. So whatever the consumer requests, it has to go through this broker. So this type of protocol is called as publish subscribe protocol. Next one is called as a push pull protocol. So in push pull protocol, again, I have a publisher, I have a consumers. So in between the publisher and consumer, I'm going to have a queue like a memory storage space. So as the publisher publishes the data, they will try to put it into a queue. So whenever the consumer requires it, they will remove the data from the queue. So as soon as the data gets published, the queue gets added. As soon as the consumer reads the data, queue gets emptied. So that is what happens in your push-pull configuration. So this is mainly used for where my appliances are going to be slow. In that case, the data transfer will not be at that faster rate. So thereby, I need to have a buffer. Let me give a practical example that let us take a computer and a printer. Let us assume computer is a publisher, printer is a consumer. So publisher or computer, I'm going to send a file for printing. So if I don't have a buffer, okay, or memory in my printer, so computer will send the data at a faster rate, but the printer will not be able to accept the data at that rate. So there will be a loss of data. But in order to accommodate that, what we do is we put a memory into the printer. So what happens? The computer will send the data to a printer at its own rate. Data will get stored in the buffer of your printer. From the buffer of the printer will take the data at its speed. Thereby, the speed mismatching can be minimized. So this is called as a push-pull communication model. So this is very used for interfacing devices which operate with different speeds. If it operates with different speeds, then I should have this type of communication model. Next one is called as an exclusive pair model. Here again, it is a bidirectional model, full duplex communication. Full duplex, as I said earlier, it is nothing but I can transmit the data and also I can receive the data. For example, here I have a client and here I have a server. So mostly this client will be something like a IoT device. Server will be your network. So when an IoT device wants to get some data from a server, first it will request for the connection setup. It will receive the response from the network. As soon as the setup is there, then the client will request for the data from the server. Then the server will respond to the client. Once all the data transfer is over, then again client will send a close request. Then finally the close response will terminate the connection. So here it is something like bidirectional and the communication protocol is fully complete. So these are different modes of communication models. So the very important mode is request response model, publish subscribe model. So request response is when, for example, let us assume that this client is an IoT device and this server or resource is a cloud. This is a cloud. This is something like a network management system. So the IoT device makes a request. Then the network management system, it checks the cloud environment, gets the data and sends the data back to your client. So this is called as a request response model. Whenever I give a request, I get a response. Publish subscribe is, I need not wait for any request. As soon as I have a data, I can publish it. Whoever wants the data, they can subscribe to the data and they can take the data. So this is called as publish subscribe data communication model. And other models and all, it is not that much widely used. Mostly these first two models are widely used in IoT systems. So now we go on to a very, very important concept of how to implement this IoT system in a smart city. So here I have something called as levels. There are 6 different levels of IoT systems. So we will see one by one. Try to understand each and every diagram. First, we will start with level 1. So here remember I have 6 levels. Out of 6 levels, 3 levels is used for single node communication. 3 levels is used for multi-node communication. Level 1, level 2, level 3 is for single node. Level 4, level 5, level 6 is for multi-node. How it is going to operate in a multi-node fashion. So level 1, it comes, the block diagram is shown here. Here I have divided it into 2 sections. One is local node. Local node in the sense IoT device. So cloud is nothing but a network. In a network, how the data will be there. In IoT level 1, there is no cloud interface. Everything happens in a IoT device itself. This is called as level 1. So here the device is going to sense the parameters. It is also going to do some, it is going to do acquisition, processing, and it will also do some control part. And the data will be stored in a database and an application will be developed in the local device itself. And this application will interact with the database to get the data. So here there is no cloud environment itself. So everything happens within a local device. So this is called as IoT level 1 system. Next one is level 2. Level 2 again it is used for single node. Okay, I am going to talk about only one device, single node. So for example here, again we have divided into 2 sections, local and cloud section. So here my device is going to get the data. Everything it will get the data. But now the processing is not going to happen in my IoT device. It will send the data to a database in a cloud. Data will be stored in a cloud environment. But the processing, everything will happen in a local environment. in the IoT device itself, it will acquire the data, do some processing. After processing, it will send the processed data to a database in the cloud. And my application will interact with the cloud data. In the level 1, there is no cloud environment. Here, everything happens in a local. In the IoT device itself, everything happens in level 1. Whereas in level 2, acquisition and processing happens at the local node, and the data will be transferred to the cloud storage. And the important thing is our application, the user application, is going to interact with the cloud data. Okay, it is not going to get the data from local, it is going to get the data from the cloud storage. In level 3, what we do is, again, the same thing. As subtle difference is there between level 2 and level 3. In level 2, after acquiring the data, we try to do the processing here in local node. But in level 3, what we do is, we acquire the data, we need not do any processing, send the data to a cloud. And in a cloud environment, we do the analysis or processing. It is called as cloud computing. We do cloud computing process here, and the application is going to interact with the cloud storage. So that is the difference between level 2 and level 3. In level 2, we do processing at the local node, store the data in the cloud, and the app is going to interact with the cloud data. In level 3, we just acquire the data. We need not do any processing. Send the data to a cloud environment. So processing, application interface, everything happens in the cloud side in IoT level 3. So far we have talked only about single nodes, level 1, level 2, level 3. Now we go to multiple nodes. If I have multiple IoT devices, how to interact between this multiple IoT devices? There comes your level 4, level 5 and level 6. So level 4, we talk about multiple nodes that perform local analysis. So we will look at the diagram and we'll come back a little bit later. So again, I divided into 2 sections, local and cloud side. So here I have device 1, device 2. So like that, I can have n number of devices. Devices is going to acquire the data. For example, in case of a something like health monitoring, if I want to monitor a bridge health, then what I can do is I can put fiber optic sensors in different locations of the bridge. Then I can connect many IoT devices. So these nodes will acquire the data and it will send the data to a network. So here these devices will acquire the data and it will be sent. It can do some local analysis, not to a high end. It can do some processing. It can do some small amount of processing. Some small amount of processing can be done and it will send the data to a cloud side. And this cloud side will be connected to the application. So for application will interact with the cloud database. And another important thing is you can see that both sides, local as well as cloud, I have one important thing is I have an observer node. Whenever a particular local device, if a device wants some data from a cloud environment, it can request and it can get the data. So that is what we say it as a observer node. So this device can request a data so that the data will come from the database, it will come to the device. Same way in a cloud side also, if it wants some data from a device, it can able to get the data from a local side. So this is called as IoT level 4. Next comes your level 5. So level 5, again, it is used for multiple nodes. So here the important thing is, here I have a coordinator and something like a endpoint devices. So for example, here I have shown 3 devices. So 2 devices, all are IoT devices, but 2 of them are configured as endpoint, or we can say it as something like a slave device. And I'm going to have a coordinator device. So coordinator device is something like a master device. So this coordinator, this endpoint devices will acquire the data and it will not directly send the data to a network. It will send it to the coordinator. So coordinator, what it will do? It will collect all the data from these endpoints. And after collecting all the data, it will communicate the data to a cloud storage. And analysis of data, everything happens in a cloud environment. Storage plus analysis, everything happens in a cloud environment. So that is what happens in a level 5. In level 4, there is no coordinator, there is no slave devices, endpoint devices. Here, all devices are equal. All devices are directly sending their data to a cloud environment. But in level 5, what we do is the endpoint devices collect the data, send it to a coordinator. And the coordinator, what it will do, it will try to send the data to a cloud storage, and further processing, analysis, everything happens in a cloud environment. This is called as IoT level 5. Last one is level 6. If I have multiple independent end nodes, then how it can be done? So here again, in level 6 also we divide into local and cloud. In local, what we do is, again I have independent devices. So this devices, what it will do is, it will send the data to a centralized controller, and also it will send the data to a cloud storage. Okay? It is something like I put the data to my server, and also I will put the data to a cloud. So it is something like a duplication. I try to duplicate. If my local server fails, then I can get the data from remote server. So that is the advantage of having your level 6 type of application. So here I try to put the data directly to a centralized controller. From centralized controller, I can send it to a cloud. As well as the device will directly send the data to a cloud information. So these are the different types of IoT levels. Why this is important in the sense, depending upon your application. For example, if I want to do something like a smart lighting, smart street lighting, then you have to select any one of these levels. Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6. For example, smart street lighting, if in a street I have something like 10 street lamps are there, then I should have 10 nodes. Then level 1, level 2, level 3 will not suit me. Then I have to go with either level 4, level 5 or level 6. So then I have to select between this level 4, level 5, level 6, what type of deployment I should do. Whether I should have a coordinator and endpoint devices, so that all the street lamps, so one will be a coordinator, all the remaining 9 street lights will be a endpoints. Those endpoints will send the data to a coordinator. From coordinator, it can send the data to a network. So like that I can do. Or else what I can do is, I can have a building. In a building, I can put a server. So in that server, I can get the data from this 10 street lamps. So this is called as a level 6. So what type of deployment we are going to do in our application? That is decided based on this IoT levels. That is why this becomes very, very important. So now we move on to the applications for smart cities. In smart cities, depending upon the size of the city, the applications gets differ. So some of them are quoted here: traffic management system, air quality monitoring, public safety solutions, smart parking, smart lighting, waste collecting. So like that we have different applications. We will try to see one by one, little bit in detail. So first we will start with traffic management. So traffic management, as a citizen, I want to move from one point to another point in a safe manner, and also it should be in an efficient manner. I should not take a long route. I should be going in a short route or less traffic region. So like that I should make some smart decisions so that I reach the destination at a with lesser time or faster rate I need to reach there. So what we can do is something like we can put different types of sensors on road surfaces to measure the traffic congestion. Okay. How many vehicles are moving, how many two-wheelers are there, how many four-wheelers are there. So in order to measure that, or in order to measure the congestion of a street, I can put lot of sensors. Or I can also use a CCTV cameras. So from a CCTV camera video image, I can estimate the congestion, whether it is heavily crowded or lightly crowded. So depending upon that, what I can do, I can able to adjust my traffic signals time duration. If it is a heavily congested road, then what I can do is, then I can allow the vehicles to pass through for a longer time period. If it is very low, dense, very less traffic is there, then I can switch over at a faster rate. So we can do something like a smart traffic management can be done using your traffic management system. So here I have shown a diagram, something like I can put some sensors to identify traffic jams. So each device can have something like a RFID or GPS systems, so that the location and its density can be easily monitored. This data goes to a traffic management platforms. So from a traffic management platform, it goes to a control application. So control application decides what to do with the traffic signals, whether I want to switch on the red light or how long I want to switch on each lights. So that will be decided by your control application. And this traffic signals can also be mounted with some sensors to measure carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, nitrogen dioxide. We can able to monitor. Thereby, the air quality can also be monitored. So it is something like a smart way of producing the traffic. So environment, in case of environment, I can go with something like water quality. I can check the water quality through some sensors, pH sensor, what is the amount of dissolved oxygen is there, dissolved ions is there, so that I can able to monitor. If I have IoT devices in different areas, then I can able to monitor. So those data can be remotely checked, and based upon that, if a water is contaminated, then I can send a team to correct that. Where is the leakage or where is the contamination coming from, so that they can try to rectify it at a faster rate. So this is regarding the environment. Same way, we can use to monitor air quality by putting some sensors for carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide. So like that, we can put some sensors from different areas. We can able to gather the data, and based upon the congestion, how it is related to a pollution. So like that, we can do a lot of analytical studies in an environment scenario. Same way for a smart parking system. So now in cities, the biggest problem is parking a vehicle. Where to find a free space? It becomes very, very difficult. So if I have a parking slot, then I have to keep on searching in that parking slot to find a vacant area so that I can park my vehicle there. So if I try to do it a little bit smart way of parking, then it will be easy for me. So we can see here something like, here I have different parking slots. Here each position is having something like a parking sensor, small sensor, obstacle sensor or something like that. We can able to put there. When a vehicle is standing, it will give a data. When the vehicle is not there, it will not give a data. From that, I can identify the vacant spot. And each car, if it has a RFID or some electronic tags, then I can easily identify at this position my vehicle is there. So basically, we can easily identify the vacant slots so that I need not roam here and there to identify a location. I can directly go to that location and I can park. Even while driving to a vacant spot, I can have something like a smart mapping, okay, so that a shortest route can be shown as an application so that I can reach the destination at a faster rate. And in public transports, so public transports, again, we can have a real check how the people are using a public transport, whether train is heavily crowded or bus is heavily crowded. So in which pattern, for example, in trains and all, few coaches will be heavily crowded, few coaches will be not that much crowded. Okay, so those type of patterns we can able to analyze, and we try to distribute the people evenly so that the over weightage in certain positions can be minimized. So this can also be enabled with the ticket sales and duration. At what time the traffic is there or number of people boarding a public transport is more, at the time we can increase the frequency of a public transport So thereby we can do some intelligent decisions. And in utilities, we have lot of home appliances which can be controlled smartly so that we can consume lot of money. So one important utility is something like smart metering, water metering, electricity metering, gas metering, energy metering. So a lot of things. So we can do it little bit in a smarter way, and the data can be communicated to the billing agencies. So thereby the accurate billing can be done, and also we can avoid the theft of this energy consumptions we can able to do. So here one such system is shown here. So here I have a bulb, so which can be connected through any of these modes. I can have a wireless light sensor to check whether the light is on or off. I can have a switch to switch on the light through wirelessly. I can have a dimmer switch so that the intensity of the bulb can be adjusted. Thereby the power consumption can be minimized. I can have a touch switch or I can have a wall switch. Using this modes, I can able to control my bulb. And all these connections are connected through a Wi-Fi network. So I can use a mobile or a computer to send that information to switch on my bulb. Switch on the bulb with this intensity. So like that, I can able to control my lighting system. Thereby, I can reduce the power consumption. Then street lighting. Again, it's very important because the highways, we have a lot of street lights. By intelligently operating this street lights, we can able to minimize the power consumption. So we can control the street light to dim or brighten based upon the day or night or seasonal variations or due to congestion. If there are more people walking around, then the light can be a little bit brighter. If less number of people is there in the surrounding area, then we can dim the light so that we can do something like a power consumption in an efficient way. So how a smart street lighting works? So here we show a typical light post, lamp post, where I have something we will see one by one. Here I have a dimmable LED bulb. So dimmable LED bulb in the sense I can adjust the intensity of the bulb. So if I adjust the intensity of the bulb, then the power consumption can be changed. So lower luminance, lower current. Higher luminance, higher current. So I can dim a bulb or brighten a bulb. So that can be controlled. So here I have an ambient light sensor here, so which can be used for identifying whether it is a daylight or day or night. Based upon that, my bulb can be switched on or off. I can also have vehicular and pedestrian traffic counter. I can estimate the traffic. So from the traffic, I can adjust my bulb so that it can be dimmer or brighter. I can also have a security camera in that lamp post and a map showing some street passage, emergency push to talk button. I can also mount some sensors here to check the air quality and also to check whether we have a rain or something like that. We can use some sensors in this lamp post. So now the lamp post becomes a smart lighting system. And waste management system, again another important parameter in smart cities. In waste management, for example, often we have a lot of dustbins in our roads, and the removers of the dust particles in a predefined schedule every morning or every evening, they try to remove that waste from the dustbin. So if it is not utilized properly, if the dustbin is not fully utilized, then there is an unnecessary wastage of fuel. Loading of truck, everything is going to be affected. So we can do something like a waste management system. So we can put some sensors into the dustbin so that we can identify whether the bin is empty, full or half empty. We can easily able to identify it. Once the bin becomes full, it can send a notification to a waste management system. So then the truck driver, they can come to that location and they can remove that dust from the waste. So thereby efficient cleaning and also minimum fuel consumption can be enabled. So this is something like a waste management system. So it helps in reduction in collection cost, no missed pickup, reduced overflows, waste generation analysis, CO2 emission reduction, because fuel consumption gets minimized, so thereby the CO2 emission also gets reduced. So these are the things which we have discussed in this FDP on sustainable smart cities. So first we started with definition of IoT. So here in definition of IoT, few key takeaways is we should have a global network infrastructure, and it should be dynamic, or it should be self-configuring. I should be able to add new nodes, and also I should be able to remove few nodes. And another important thing is here I have the devices have the identities, names or IP address or something like that. Some identity should be there from where we are getting the data. So that should be there. And also my device should be able to communicate with this information network. So that is related to the definition of IoT. Then we started discussing about IoT device building blocks. What will be there in my IoT device? So if you remember, our IoT device is going to have a processor, and the processor is going to get the data through the sensors, through different serial communication protocols. I can also have an audio input as well as video input. In that case, I need to have a special processor called as GPU. So once this data is there, I can store the data locally using some SD card or MMC card, or I can send the data to a network using Ethernet or USB connectivity we can able to do. So this is regarding your IoT device building blocks. Then we discussed about IoT communication protocols. In IoT communication protocols, we talked about 4 layers: link layer, network layer, transport layer, and application layer. So link layer is the one from which my IoT device is going to send the data. Network layer, what it is going to do? It is going to take the data from IoT device. It is going to convert the data into a IP data packet, and the data will be transferred to a transport layer. So transport layer, what it is going to do? It is going to ensure that the data is properly transmitted to the destination or not. Then finally comes your application layer. In application layer, we try to see, or we try to access the data stored in our network. Then fourth, we discussed about communication models. So in communication models, 2 important models is request response model. When I request for something, I get the response from the network. When an IoT device wants something, it will send a request. It can get the response from a network or a cloud storage. So this is request response model. Another model is called as publish subscribe model. So if an IoT device has some data, it can publish the data to a network. And whichever device wants a data, particular data, it can subscribe to that broker and it can take that data. So this is called as publish subscribe model. Other than this, we have a lot of push pull and bidirectional. We have a lot of other communication models. Then we started discussing about IoT device levels. Level 1, level 2, level 3 is used for only single node. If I have only one node, then how to send the data to a network? That is taken care by a level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 4, level 5, and level 6 is used for multiple nodes. If I have multiple nodes, how these multiple nodes are going to work together to send the data to a network. So that is what we discussed in IoT deployment levels. Then finally, we discussed about IoT applications. In IoT applications, we little bit talked about traffic management, environment management, water quality, waste management, smart street lighting, smart homes. So we discussed about few applications in detail. So with this, I will stop. So if you have any doubts, I can able to answer.
Now, the participant can ask the doubts via chat box. Sir?
Hello? Yeah.
I do have a doubt,
please.
sir. can we use the IoT technologies to monitoring the building health, sir? Like pretending the seismic waves and cracks like this?
Yeah, we can surely do it. So only thing is we should be able to have those type of sensors. So sensors are very important. So because it needs to get the actual data, real-time data. Once the data is available, we can use a processor to get the data, and then it is just only forwarding it into a cloud network. Thereby, a processing can be done in the cloud side. It is possible.
Okay, so thank you. And another question from G. Shanti. For an effective building management system, which IoT level 5 or level 6 will give best result?
So, so we will just visit that level 5, level 6. So for the question is for building management system, whether level 5.
For an effective building management system, which IoT level will give best results? Level 5 or level 6? Sir?
So here if you see this level 5, so in level 5, so for example, let us assume that my building is going to be something like 2 floors or some 5 floors are going to be there. And I'm going to put some endpoints in each floor. Okay, for 5 floors, I'm going to take 5 endpoints and one coordinated device I can have. So here I should ensure that the type of communication which I need to use, depending upon my size of the building, I should ensure that my data from first floor should reach the coordinator, and also from all the other floors should reach the coordinator. So I should decide whether my network should be a Wi-Fi network or it should be a Zigbee network, or what type of network it should be. So that will be the important role in this IoT level 5. So the data should be transferred properly to a coordinator. If the data is properly transferred to a coordinated device, then it can easily send the data to a cloud storage and we can do analysis. So level 6 is something like I have a duplication of my data. Okay. So again, let us take the same 5-floor building. So each floor has an IoT device, and each device is going to collect the data from that floor. So it is going to be, this data is going to go to a cloud storage. So if something happens with my centralized or local server, then always I have a backup in my cloud storage so that I can get the data at a faster rate from the cloud. If my centralized server is working properly, then I can do all the manipulation with the help of a centralized server. So thereby here the analysis wise IoT level 6 will be good if my centralized controller is going to be perfect. Then I can do all the processing with the help of the centralized server. If there is a problem with my centralized server, then it will be similar to that of my level 5, because here my data will go to the cloud, and always when I put the data to a cloud and retrieve and do some processing, it is going to take some time. So if my data is available locally, then the processing will be faster. If the data is available in a remote environment, then sending a request, getting the data, processing, it will take some. So that is the difference between level 5 and level 6. So in level 6 will be better if my centralized controller is fine. It is not having any issues, then I can do processing with the help of a centralized controller itself. I need not worry about the cloud storage. If there is a problem with my centralized controller, then both level 5 and level 6 are similar to each other.
Thank you, sir. And another question from Subin. There are growing demand of ensuring the right to privacy. Will it affect the IoT applications?
That is what when we try to do with the application. Okay, so when the data reaches your application, whatever we see, for example, let us assume that I have an application to show the temperature of a room. So whatever I see, something like 36 degree or 28 degrees, so that data will not be there as it is in cloud environment. The data which will be there in a cloud environment will be the encrypted version of what I see in my application. It will not be that 36 degree will be there in my cloud environment. So it will be something like 808 or something, some other value will be there. So there will be encryption will be involved during the cloud storage as well as cloud data retrieval process. So it is highly efficient. But depending upon the level of encryption, the retrieval and storage property is going to be changing. If the encryption is more, then it will take lot of time to data. Then only I will be able to see the actual data value. So the time consumption process will be an important factor.
Thank you, sir. And Sandeep Kaushik requested to explain the MQTT little more, sir.
Okay, so MQTT is a message queuing transfer protocol. Okay, so it's a message queuing telemetry transport, which is a lightweight messaging protocol, mostly used for some mobile applications. So most of our application supports this MQTT protocol, and it comes under is your publish subscribe model. So publish subscribe model is something like, as I said in the communication models, so the data from an IoT device will be published. Whoever wants it, they can take the data, they can subscribe to the data, and they can take the data. So that is the main important thing with your MQTT protocol.
And another question from Purna Chandar, where we can learn this IoT completely, sir.
So it's a very difficult question because it involves lot of disciplines. You should have an understanding about electronic devices, how to connect a sensor with a microcontroller, how to acquire a data, and it also requires some IT skills, computer science skills, to send the data to a cloud environment and do some cloud computing. So it's a completely multidisciplinary. So you should have a lot of understanding about this different aspects. Thereby, you can able to do better. So there is no complete solution for this. But nowadays, we have lot of IoT devices, small devices. It comes like a plug and play. So just we can connect a sensor. The data will be sent to using some IP address. We can able to communicate web clouds. We can able to do. So such a simplified versions are available.
Thank you, sir. And another question from Dr. G. Shanti. Most of the IoT technologies, it is easy to hack our personal data. Is there any high security system is available to protect our data from hackers?
Yeah, the same question is again repeated. As I said, the data which we try to send from an IoT device, it can be encrypted before storing. It can be encrypted. It's up to the application developer. They can introduce their level of encryption into their data. Thereby, I can store a encrypted data and I can retrieve a data after decryption. So it is up to the application developer. So they can decide whether they have to have a minimum level of encryption or whether they I don't want any other person to view it, then I require a high level of encryption. Thereby, no other person will be able to decrypt it and be able to see the data. If it is something like a small messages or something, then I need not worry about much security. So I can go with low level applications encryption.
Okay, sir. And another question from Question: how can we use IoT for traffic management and how to get the real-time and fast data from Google Maps?
Traffic management is very difficult when we say in Indian scenario. But in foreign countries, they have done it in an efficient way because they try in a pretty much strict way. In our country, traffic management is difficult because we are heavily crowded, and also what to say, it is very difficult to identify each and every vehicle and try to do real-time analysis. So it is only under research. Okay, so they are trying to do it using some CCTV cameras. They try to identify the congestion. From Google Maps, we can get the data, and all this we can do something like a machine learning, artificial intelligence systems. We can able to incorporate into it, thereby make some smart decisions. But it is not that much up to the mark right now in India because we are heavily crowded. It's very difficult to do in Indian scenario, and also we are not good in following the rules. So we try to drive zigzag, everything will be there. So it will become very difficult to do traffic management.
And next question from Madhusudana Reddy. Sir, does IoT can be used to weather systems?
Yeah, it is already used for weather monitoring. So we have a lot of IoT devices incorporated in different parts of Tamil Nadu and all over India. So those are sending the informations. So those data are also being studied with the help of a satellite images. So it is already there, available in our Indian scenario for weather monitoring.
And next question from Manipriya. How can we tackle security issues in case of traffic management incorporating vehicle-to-vehicle communication and vehicle-to-infrastructure communications?
Yeah, everything is related to the identity of the devices. So if we have the identities of each and every devices, we can able to see from which device we are getting this data and how this data is being transferred. So while transferring the data, I can do some encryption. Thereby, I can avoid interference between the data. So everything involves a huge infrastructure and encryption technology to do this. Because again and again the same question comes: how the security is needed? Again, it's a very big challenge involved because, as we all know, that we are heavily crowded and the number of devices which we have is very huge in number. So thereby, we should have an infrastructure to store those number of informations, and we should be able to do some encryption and decryption at a faster rate, so that I can do something like a real-time traffic congestion monitoring. So it is it's in the trial stage. It's not up to the mark.
Thank you, sir. And next question from Nikhil. In a two-way, just server and client IoT architecture, where there is no cloud, how can security be implemented?
Yeah, I think the question is regarding a local area network. So in a local area network, something like we have a server and we have a lot of clients. So this clients gets interconnected with the server. So thereby the data can be transferred into a network and we can retrieve the data from a network. Again, it is up to the application developer to put the encryption log data from a local area network after decrypting it. So it should not be just like getting the data, sensor data, and sending it to a network. After getting a data, I should do some encryption logic. Then only I can put the data in a secure manner in a local network or in a cloud environment. So in both cases, I should have some security. So in both cases, I should do some encryption, and while retrieving, I should do the decryption, reverse part, so that I get the original data.
Thank you, sir. Participants can ask the doubts via chat box so that we can ask it to Okay, sir. That's it, sir.
Okay, fine. So I have not
Thank
gone
you, sir. It was
not gone
very
in much detail since most of you are from civil engineering backgrounds. So I have just given a basic introduction about this IoT device and how to deploy it in a real-time scenario. Okay, so I try to make as simple as possible. Thank you very much for having a
thank
patience.
you, sir. It was a very valuable and information session on IoT enabled technology. Thank you for sharing your valuable knowledge with us, sir.
Thank you very much.
Information to the participants. Complete the test today itself and join at the next session tomorrow at 9:45. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.